What do we do parliamentarian with the absence of a little break by trustee?
Madam Chair, he just doesn't vote because he's absent. It's not counted at all.
Okay. Human Resources, academic items A through B. That's number 13A, employment of faculty, closure. And I believe, Bill, did you want to speak to?
It's all one item, so this is the appropriate time to speak, I believe. The item that's before you, 13B, includes reassigned time for faculty. Once again, the names of the newspaper, the forensics team, and the art gallery director are. I'd like to part of my transition from last month's board meeting. At the time, Trustee Aguilar made a move to add these 4 names to the in question. Seconded by the Parliament. And my purpose is to exceed the scope of the original motion, in which case it would have to be a separate agenda in a separate meeting. He went on to explain that a little bit and then said my advice under these circumstances would be to consider this as a separate agenda item at a future meeting. At that point, the board President Jean Roche remarked, that's what I was thinking about. It would be a separate agenda item because this does not include the 4 positions you are talking about. At that point, the district council asked for a pause so he could look at the agenda item. He came back and reported to the there's things in the 72-hour Brown Act, etc. His concluding statement of my recommendation to the board would be, and I don't see any prejudice if this waits until a future board meeting, my recommendation would be that the 4 names not be added and that they be considered as a separate new item, separate board. Since that time, I believe Trustee Nick Aguilar may have requested that this issue be placed on the agenda. I know certainly that Max Branscombe has requested it, and I have requested it. It's still not on the agenda. I'd like to remind you once again, and I've already done so by email, what the Brown Act and what the Education Code says. Section 72-121.5 says, it is the intent of the legislature, members of the public, it goes on to say the government shall adopt. This ordinance, own policy says it's the responsibility, it goes on to say that the items initiated by members of the public pursuant to this policy shall be placed on the governing board agendas following the items of business initiated by the board and by staff. And the CLC, that's College Leadership Council meeting a couple of Wednesdays ago, when I brought this issue to the agenda to Dr. Chopra's attention, he told me that while members of the public can make requests, the board is not obligated to respond to them. And furthermore, he said that this issue had already been discussed by the board.
Okay.
Finish. That's 3 minutes.
May I finish? This is important.
Can you have 1 more minute?
Yes, okay. So first of all, my understanding of the Ed Code is that the board members are, and the superintendent are required to agendize this matter. And second, this decision to grant reassigned time and a public discussion of the merits and the demerits of such a decision have not been discussed. Your own district council would not permit that discussion. He informed you that the discussion must take place under an agenda item. So I'm requesting formally, publicly, and on the record the reassigned time for the faculty advisor to the student newspaper, reassigned time for the faculty advisor to the forensics team, and reassigned time for the art gallery director be placed on the agenda at the next regular Southwestern College board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. 13A, we need to vote on item 13A, employment of faculty and closure. Request approval of employment of effective as indicated. Final salary placement is contingent upon verification of education and experience. Do I hear a motion?
I'm doing 13A and B.
All right. Very good. Second. Any discussion?
On 13A, actually for 13A and B, if there's a hiring freeze, why doesn't it apply to these positions?
Dr. Silk, would you like to answer that?
Yes, the hiring freeze was not imposed for the faculty positions.
And the does that also apply to the item 13B?
Yes.
What board policy authorizes, this is under point of information, it's not argument for or against. And this is as to both items. What board policy authorizes the inclusion of one additional month extra pay for on-staff coaches? And if it's a different policy, maybe it would be what board policy authorizes the allocation of non-contractual reassigned time?
Dr. Chopra, do you answer that?
In answer to your question concerning the board policy that would authorize the additional month for pay for the staff coach assignment, it's actually pursuant to the SCEA contract, section 7.6.2.1, because the coaching assignment is an additional assignment.
I see. So it's pursuant to a contract commitment, not a board policy? Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
That's
So-
correct.
So
Yes.
there is no board policy that applies here, it's just a union contract?
Just,
Yeah.
Point of information.
Ms. Bonner, did you have something?
Well,
Okay.
well, I still have the floor, and,
Are we, you were discussing or you were at a point of clarification?
I'm still getting, this is points of information on the point, and so I just, I wanted to be sure that there wasn't, when I say just the contract, there isn't also a board policy that requires that, but it's only pursuant to the contract.
That's correct.
Okay. Is that the same for item 13B, that the reassigned time is, well, and that was actually a little different question, because on that one, there are reassigned times pursuant to contract, but there's also, as I recall, non-contractual reassigned time and non-contractual stipends. So what board policy underpins the authority for allocating reassigned time and non-contractual reassigned time and non-contractual stipends?
Dr. Chopra, would you like to?
There is no board policy.
So under what authority is the board being asked to approve these expenditures?
Would you ask the superintendent that, Nick?
Well, all my questions go to the president, and she can decide who she wants to assign it to.
The authority is the superintendent authority, and once we recommend, then, and the money is involved, then our board approves it when it comes to the financial situation. But it is determined by the superintendent president whether the position is legal or not.
Yeah, and this is under what board policy?
it's the CEO's responsibility to run the district on a day-to-day basis. He is recommending to
Well,
us.
I'm sorry, I'm directing my questions to the president, so we could give me general counsel to weigh in on this. I'm not asking, this is not a debate with one of the board members.
Well, you're asking some questions that you should know.
Who do you want to answer this?
Well,
Ms. Salcido has something to say.
Well, no, I'm not asking for input from the board, I'm asking for information from staff and or general counsel so that I can have authoritative sources for this information. It isn't a matter of personal opinion.
But Mrs. Salcido has something she might clarify for you.
Well, I'm with Trustee Valladolid, is that the president does have the duty to go ahead and it's operational to determine, based on the recommendations from his cabinet and the vice presidents, as to where the personnel is needed, and if there are funds available, for us to go ahead and go in and inquire what authority or what policy our superintendent is basing it on. It's based on his contract and based on the duties as the president to be able to go ahead and fulfill the duties of running the operation of this district.
Point of order,
I'm
this has
sorry,
become,
she's talking.
well, it's a point of order because it is now an argument for or against the motion. I'm asking for a point of information, and I'm asking it from you, from the source, either general counsel or someone who is knowledgeable about board policies.
Dr. Chopra, if I can just he needs an answer. Is it your duties within the responsibility of the president to go ahead and manage the operation
Point of order,
this
it's a
district?
question, point of order, I have the floor, and through the president, I'm asking for president to obtain an authoritative response to the question that I posed.
All right, yes, counsel.
The question's being framed as whether it essentially requires a board policy as a condition precedent, or is it within the parameters and the authority of the college president to make the recommendation? If the board disagrees, then they can do otherwise and act otherwise. But I'm happy to advise the board through an opinion letter as to what to frame the legal issue in that way and to provide an answer. But at this point, I'm not going to respond in open session on that.
Well, that would be satisfactory, and the reason I'm asking is because this matter is obviously become very controversial, and the authority to allocate or not allocate this kind of extra funding for particular programs has become an issue. And I want to be clear as to whether it is a policy issue to determine whether there should be reassigned time, and if so, what criteria? If so, should there be criteria developed for this policy so that there is clarity, and we have some sense from the board in the future to know whether it is
It is no
something that
longer a point of information. You are in discussion.
I'm
Just like
sorry.
you mentioned it to me, I am asking you to, whether you want to go ahead and talk pro or against, then do so, but it's no longer point of information or any of that sort. So, Madam President, I would suggest that if we can go ahead and move forward, please. That is, we're going into discussion. We're no longer point of clarification.
Okay, as point of order, I'm going to say, Ms. Valladolid, do you have something to
Call for the question.
Second.
Call for the question.
Point of order, I had the floor
Do we
before I
call
was
for the question or
interrupted.
do we?
And I
Hold
was-
on, just a minute.
Madam Chair, I'd like to point out that I can't respond to points of order. Only the chair can respond to points of order, and I can only comment if asked to do so by the chair of the meeting. But as long as I have been asked to respond to that, at any given point, any member of the board has the right to interrupt the speaker and to point out that they no longer believe that that person is asking for a point of clarification, but has crossed the line into a debate. I think that's what's happened. I'd also like to point out that the chair, and only the chair, has the right to call on and recognize individuals to respond to questions. And to the extent that the chair does that, then the board has to recognize the legitimacy of the board president to do that. So I don't see any line being crossed here at all.
Okay, thank you. And Ms.
I
Valladolid?
guess you need to recognize the call for the question and the second.
Okay, you called the question, and there's a second. Anyone discussion? Okay, please vote.
Now, this is a vote to close debate.
To close debate, yes. Okay, now we vote. Pardon? Okay, 3 saying aye and 2 saying no.
The motion fails. And you have a minute and a half remaining of discussion.
Okay,
On the minute and a half, starting my time. I don't want to vote against either of these motions. My concern is to the larger policy issue, and I was trying to provide us a sense for the general counsel when he looks at this issue. I'm trying to get a sense of, as a matter of policy, whether it is a board responsibility to determine whether reassign time, or for that matter, any other additional compensation for co-curricular, extracurricular programs should be done pursuant to board policy. And if so, should there be criteria developed to avoid the appearance of either favoritism or punishment against certain programs, specifically the South Western Calling Sun, because of their activities. This is not a,
Dr.
doesn't
Dominguez?
help.
Madam President, couple of things going through my mind here. Number one, I fully concur, at least in my opinion, with the
That's time, Madam Chair.
Sorry?
That's time. You've reached the 10-minute threshold.
Oh, we have.
We have to make a
Move
motion.
extension of
We have to move
the,
extension.
move extension of the time for 3 more minutes.
Okay. Can you get a second on
Second.
Our discussion.
Yes, I was saying.
Oh, I'm
Oh.
sorry, please vote.
How are we having time? I know what the outcome's going to be, so. What I was saying is I concur personally with what trustee,
Sorry, Madam Chair, the motion fails. Requires a 2/3 to extend time as well.
Well, you got 5 minutes.
I'm looking at it. It's 2/3. Oh, okay, I was looking at it. Okay. All right, I'll call for the vote.
66.66.
Will you please vote?
That's 60.
Is it coming up? Who's not voting?
Is that-
Okay. Motion passes, all saying aye. Okay, now we go on to item 14, classifying items A through E. Number 14, employment of classified personnel.
Move on item 14A.
Okay. Do I hear a second? 14A.
Second.
Discussion?
Again, point of information, why is a hiring freeze not applied to the position listed under this agenda item?
Okay, you're asking Dr. Chopra?
My question is always directed to you, Madam President.
Well, you're always looking out that way, so I never know who you're doing it to.
He just said it's always directed to you.
Always to me, okay, all right. So, Dr. Chopra, would you like to answer that?
Yes, Madam President.
The position listed under item 14A was not, the hiring freeze was not imposed on that position because it is a position that provides safety for district-wide as a campus police officer.
And that's one of the exceptions to the freeze?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, please vote. Okay, one absent, by delete, others all pass. Number 14B, establish a classified bargaining unit grant funded positions. Request approval.
Second.
14B, okay, discussion? And please vote. Okay,
Move approval on 14C.
okay. I hear a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Point of information, what board policy authorizes the allocation of non-academic hourly assignments?
Dr. Chopra?
It's not board policy, but it, excuse me, but it is CSEA contract item 7.11, which references the Ed Code 88003, which is the legal authority for in the definition for the non-academic hourly assignments.
Okay, and is there a criteria rational used to determine the allocation of non-academic hourly assignments?
It's actually the responsible administrator makes the determination regarding the additional hours necessary for the assignment to meet the needs of the district.
So as I'm asking you to supply on the judgment of the department head.
That's correct.
Call the question.
Okay, all right. Any other discussion? All right, please vote. And we have Linda Gilstrap. Both are, one is resignation, Phyllis resignation, and Linda Gilstrap is retiring.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Points of information. Are these 5 employees now on official layoff status as of 6/15?
In the 14B.
Yes.
14E.
This report.
Oops.
We are on
I'm sorry. Withdraw my question and call the question on
Okay, any other discussion?
Second on call question. No need, okay.
Please vote. And now, item 14E.
14E.
Monthly employment status. Okay,
Move to approve.
any discussion?
Yeah,
Yes, I have.
under point of information, not discussion, again, this is a question that I had as to whether these employees are on official layoff status as of June 15th.
Yes.
Were any of these employees listed in this item eligible for any of the positions included in items 13 and 14 of the agenda? And were they